To learn from and get an idea of what our primary target audience thought of our documentary, we encouraged them to evaluate how effectively they thought the documentary was in conveying the topic. This was done through the candidates viewing all 3 products and then filling in a questionnaire. As the media producers, we wanted to see if the target audience was swayed to a particular opinion through the use of mediation and gatekeeping.
Can you see a clear link between the 3 products?
Firstly, 100% of the candidates stated that they saw a clear link between all 3 products. This was pleasing to hear as it personified my opinion that was conveyed through evaluation question 2, where I gave evidence that products were linked. Also, this helped me prove that the DPS and radio advert helped sell and advertise the product.
Who do you think the primary and secondary audience is for this product? For this question, all the candidates gave the answer that I'd hoped for, these being the audience of teenagers and parents. However, the candidates mixed these answers in the primary and secondary audience options, meaning that it's not clear to our audience who the product is actually targeting. This is surprising to hear, as it may mean there is not enough elements such as mise en scene to appeal to teenagers, but on the other hand might reveal that the secondary audience is somewhat just as effectively targeted that the primary audience is. One way to rectify this in the documentary might be that conventions such as direct address would be used more to specifically target the audience of teenagers. An example of this might be narration statements such as, "Your education might be affected." Does the documentary interest you and why? As the candidates were of the primary target audience, we want to see if the topic interested them. We were mostly successful in interesting the candidates, as they stated it was because the documentary was informative and appropriately covered a serious topic. Also, 2 candidates' answers stood out as they gave the impression that we'd achieved some of our goals that we had planned for in the research and planning stages of our advanced portfolio. Firstly, one candidate stated that the documentary interested them because it uncovers a topic that is hardly spoken about in general society. This relates back to evaluation question 1, where I'd stated that I wanted to explore the taboo and sensitive topic of mental health to make my documentary unique, like real media texts have done to make them successful. Secondly, another candidate stated that the documentary interested them as they were educated. This is pleasing to hear, as in the construction stages the theory of uses and gratifications was pushed to be implemented so that the learning/information need would be gratified. I feel that this has been proved through the positive results that were achieved in the audience response. Is the documentary boring?
This question was primarily used to follow from the previous. I feel that it proves that the documentary is successful in entertaining our audience, which allows our point to be effectively conveyed.
Do you like the iconography of the DPS? Anything specifically?
Question 5 was solely used to learn from and gather opinions on the aesthetics and visual pleasing aspect of the DPS. I feel that we've been successful in achieving an eye-catching, bright, detailed double-page spread because of the candidates' opinions. The candidates had many different varied specific likes of the DPS, which means there is many pleasing aspects to the reader. Candidates also pointed out that they enjoyed it was school related, which links to the educational aspect of the documentary.
Do you think the sound levels are good? A common convention that usually makes or breaks a documentary is the use of consistent sound levels. This has been achieved in my documentary because the audience response stated that they felt that the sound level convention has been successfully conformed to in my documentary. The response also gave an impression that the candidates thought the radio advert sound levels were successful too. This helps prove my aim in entertaining the audience, as the documentary is clear in conveying the topic. Do you find the subject interesting? Any topic specifically?
This question was similar to question 3, however we wanted to see if the actual topic of mental health interested them opposed to just the documentary. This resulted in 9 out of 10 of the candidates stating that they were interested by the subject, which means we chose the right target audience to aim our documentary at.
Was the pace good? In the research and planning stages of the project, I found that successful real media texts use a consistent pace from shot to shot to keep their audience from being bored. I wanted to replicate this convention in my documentary, and therefore I implemented it. I learnt from the response that this was justified by the fact that 90% of the candidates felt that the pacing of the documentary was good, therefore meaning it kept them entertained. However, one candidate stated that they did not like the pace and later stated in the feedback that it was because the professional segment had a slow pace. This was expected criticism as the decision was made in the construction of the doc that the professional interviews would require a slower pace so that the information could be conveyed. I have now learnt through the feedback this was an unnecessary sacrifice and concludes that an improvement of the documentary would need to be made to improve the pace of the professional interviews. Maybe cutting them down with some other background footage or spread them through the documentary would work better. What did you not like? This question was to see the candidate's opinion of what they did not like, so I as the media producer could see what to improve on. It was personified by the audience that the professional interview's pace was slow and they felt that it could have been shortened or spread through the documentary more. Again, this is a possible improvement. What was your favourite bit?
Question 10 allowed the audience to state their favourite part or aspect of the documentary. There were many varied answers for this question, however the most surprising was the aspect of archival footage of drawings that many candidates enjoyed. These scenes were primarily only used as backing footage for narration of stats and facts and figures. However, this was pleasing to hear, as in the planning stages I was worried about how this aspect of backing footage would play into the documentary and how it would be received by the audience. But evidently it was received well.
How effectively do you think we have represented the topic of mental health? A main narrative theory that was present in the documentary, which was relied heavily on to provide different arguments and further convey the mediated point to the audience, was a theory of binary opposites by Levi Strauss. I believe that this has affected the audience reaction to the product, as they have stated in the results that they believe the documentary has conveyed the topic effectively. I believe that these results convey the fact that the theory has helped the audience understand the topic better and therefore giving them an opinion that the product is effective in its aim at educating and entertaining them. What is your view of mental health in education after watching the documentary and reading the DPS? Throughout the audience response, the candidates mostly supported the message of the documentary that the topic is not being taken seriously enough. This is personified by the results that were gathered through the question, which can be summarised as more needs to be done. These are positive results to gather, as it shows how the documentary has been effective in conveying the topic, but also shows how the reliance on a mixture of passive but also active audience is. In planning the documentary, we wanted to implement the hypodermic model theory to influence the passive audience and allow the message to have power over the audience. However, we also wanted a mixture of an active audience, therefore leading to the implementation of Stuart Hall's theory. The audience have decoded the message as it was encoded by me, the producer, depicting that a preferred reading was present. I feel that the results have shown that the audience was injected with a message, but also took this message on board and supported it by giving their own opinion. Did reading the DPS want you to watch the documentary, and vice versa, and why?
Question 13 was another attempt at personifying my evaluation question 2, where I presented the idea that products are linked and effective in advertising the main product. This question also allowed the candidates a chance at commenting to why they'd want to watch the documentary when looking at the DPS. This resulted in very varied answers that range from bright, eye-catching colours to interesting content. This was pleasing to hear, as it means that there are many aspects of the DPS that were effective in advertising. Also, this shows we chose the right target audience to aim our documentary at. We asked some of the candidates who were at the age of the primary target audience to participate in an interview, so we as the media producer could get a more detailed idea on how effective our documentary was and what possible improvements could be made. Firstly, we asked the candidates' thoughts on how effectively we have linked the three products. I am pleased with the candidates' opinions as they state they think the products are clearly linked while still covering sensitive, serious topics. Through this response, it shows that the ancillary products effectively sell the main product. We then asked what the candidates' favourite part of the documentary was. In this response, again, the candidates stated that one of their favourite bits was the background drawings, used as backing footage to the main narration of facts and figures. This was reassuring to hear, as it suggests that there were no parts of the documentary that bored the audience. Another candidate also stated that their favourite part was the vox pops and expert interviews. This proves how the mise-en-scene elements and the binary opposition theory of the unknowledgeable vox pop subject and the knowledgeable expert has helped create a compelling narrative that furthers the point of the documentary. Then we asked how effectively they thought the documentary linked to the topic of mental health, and if there was any improvements that could be made. The candidates felt that the documentary did link to the main topic, however they did suggest some improvements. Firstly, one candidate mentioned that the conventional improvement could have been made to follow the style of a blank background of the chosen magazine of Radio Times. I felt that this would diminish the eye-catching factor that the DPS possesses, but would have to be altered to fit the style. One way the DPS could be altered to accommodate this is to use the iconography of white sheets of paper more to achieve this, but also fit the iconography of the DPS. Another improvement was that the candidate felt that the music should not be included in the documentary to represent the suffering in silent aspect of mental health topic. However, on reflection, I felt that this would diminish the entertainment factor of the documentary, as a main convention of music would not be included. Also, it would diminish the power and impactfulness of the introduction of the documentary. We then asked a candidate who they thought the primary and secondary audience was. This candidate answered teenagers as a primary audience and parents as a secondary audience, which is what we planned in the early stages of the documentary. This shows that we have aimed our documentary at the right target audience. We also gathered some thoughts on those from the secondary audience of parents.
The documentary was interesting as it shows a serious topic that appeals to me as I have a child of this age. I thought it was interesting, however, I would like to see more vox pops with other parents.
This response shows me that the topic has been effective in appealing to the secondary audience. However, the candidate did suggest an improvement of using vox pops of the secondary audience's age. I feel that this is a valid point and these vox pops would definitely be used in the full documentary. However, I felt that for the first 5 minutes this idea didn't fit, therefore it not being used.
In conclusion, I feel that through the audience response, we have been successful in creating an effective ancillary product to advertise the main product, convey a mediated point, implement theory, and take advantage of documentary conventions to create an overall entertaining piece. The quantitative and qualitative data that was gathered through evaluation question 3, we can see that there are clear improvements that the audience recommended to make the documentary better in conveying its point. If done again, these improvements would definitely be implemented.